What's your name and what's your game?
My name is Chad Jenkins, and I'm working on a game called Phantom Brigade.
How'd you come to the name Phantom Brigade?
Well, it's actually a play on what the game is about. So you're a group that is still fighting after your military has capitulated, and they call themselves the Phantom Brigade for one because they're the only thing left of your dead armed forces, so to speak, trying to liberate your country. But they also operate like ghosts, and they see themselves as kind of already dead. So they're the Phantom Brigade. Keep fighting long after the war has ended. So
Was that like an open social media name?
surprisingly, yes. Yeah.
Like that seems like it would have been a band or a conference or...
There's actually like a Call of Duty group or something.
Oh, like a clan?
Yeah, like a clan that's called the Phantom Brigade. And there are some references, but like surprisingly enough, like Phantom Brigade game and all that stuff was not taken. Yeah.
Have you ever been in like a game community group or a clan?
Well, yeah, I play EVE Online, so
Are you able to say what that is, or is that private information?
I don't know.
How big is it?
It's not super big. It's mostly just me and my friends. It's this little group called Panoptic, and we just like I'm a miner, like a Care Bear, as they would call it. And,
That's the term. It's a Care Bear.
yeah, they call you Care Bears because like I do in industry and like manufacturing and mining, and I don't really like killing people. So I'm labeled a Care Bear in a game like EVE. Yeah.
Did you watch Care Bears as a kid? Or as a young adult? I don't know how old you
I saw
are.
a few episodes of it, but that was about it. Yeah.
My favorite was always the lion, which is kind of a weird Care Bear to like. I don't remember really enjoying it as a kid. I remember watching it. I mean, the Care Bear stare retroactively is a hilarious.
Oh yeah.
Like just chest out, lights up, like.
Yeah,
that's
awesome.
cool.
I liked Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles back in the day. That was good.
Yeah, I did too. They had kind of a longer run. Like Transformers and G.I. Joe was a bit before my time. So like Power Rangers.
Yep.
Like Power Rangers, Pokemon, Beasties. Do you know about the Canadian? So in Canada, do you know about Beast Wars?
Oh, Beast Wars, yeah.
Yeah, in Canada, it was called Beasties.
Really?
Because Beast Wars was a bit
Too aggressive?
problematic or whatever you want to use, which is kind of funny. Which makes sense, but it's also kind of funny because there's still a bunch of like animal violence, I guess, in that.
It's still the same content, right?
Yeah, they're still fighting wars, same content. They just called it Beasties on Canadian channels.
Fascinating.
So what are you developing this game for?
Well, you mean like platforms?
Yeah, platforms, purpose.
Well, so I am a very big fan of classical tactical RPGs. And there really hasn't been one recently with giant robots, and there also hasn't been one on PC. At least not in the sense of like a classical RPG in the vein of like Final Fantasy Tactics and even the old Front Mission games. So part of that is just like really wanting that game to exist and there not being anything out there. So that's kind of my motivation for making it. And I also want to put my own spin on it, of course, as game developers often want to do. Yeah.
So what are the classics? Like, what are the classical tacticals?
Well, like certainly Final Fantasy Tactics is the big one, and that was a really good game, and definitely one of the games that really got me interested in game development in general. And also Front Mission, which was made by Square as well, and it was basically like Final Fantasy Tactics, but with giant robots, and I've always been fascinated with like technology and sci-fi. So it was a really cool setting, and you could actually like customize them, capture the enemy mechs and stuff. I thought that was really awesome.
So, I mean, you mentioned that there hasn't really been a lot of like tactical RPGs that involve giant mechs. Mm-hmm. Where are you getting that giant mech inspiration? Are you playing like MechWarrior Online, or or the old MechWarrior games, or what kind of mechs are you drawing from?
Mostly Front Mission and those series of games, because what happened is they released 3 and they brought that to the West, and they also did 4, but they never actually brought 5 to the United States. It was in Japan only, and there was actually a fan translation project where they went through and like pulled out the diffs on the ISO, and then you could burn a copy of the import disc and it would translate it to English for you. And I actually did this because I was such a big fan of the series. But they had like a huge petition to bring it to the US and everything. And then eventually what they did is they released a front mission, but it was like a third-person Call of Duty where like you literally are like shooting out of a helicopter and having like those scenes, and it was like completely different than this like really dense tactical game. So there's not really been like a sequel. It was almost like when they did XCOM and they made like a first-person shooter out of it. It's basically kind of like a similar thing happened with Front Mission.
Has a genre changed like that? Have you ever enjoyed it in games? Like, has there ever been a game where the genre changes so much in some sequel and you're like, actually, I really like this too?
I'm hard-pressed to find a case of that, because normally like the reason why you like the game is partially the presentation, right? And partially like I loved the tactical aspect and configuring your mechs, and they did have some of that, but it just played so differently that it just wasn't at all what I was looking for, right? So I think when you move to a genre that is opposing, like playing action-based games is one type of consumer, and people tend to like really like that. And people who like these more drawn out, like cerebral experiences, they aren't looking for an action experience, right? So like you kind of alienate the people who are your base customers. So I think that's kind of a hard thing to do when you do it in that way.
Are you trying to show the game at places where you feel like there's a lot of good PC, like traditional strategy people? Like, are you choosing shows over other shows to try and get in front of the audience that you feel like is the most applicable?
Yeah, so one of the things I did is I went to, for instance, like Seattle Retro Games, because there's a lot of retro gamers there, and I got good feedback on the game. And I'm also taking it over to Seattle Indies Expo. I'm mostly going to be going to the big conferences next year. That's where my core focus is going to be. And I'm probably going to choose ones where I think that probably like Europe as well, like Gamescom I think would be really good, because they're really into tactical strategy experiences over there as well.
Are you showing at this PAX?
No, I'm just going to be showing it kind of to press and not actually having a booth or anything like that.
Do you, like, what do you think, because I mean we experienced this with Dark Dungeon, like it's kind of hard to show a game sometimes at these shows that's all loud noises, and I just want to pick it up and play it. Like what kind of thought process are you putting into your like show experience with this game?
Right. So I think the part of the game that will show the best, and that's kind of what I'm focusing on, at least for shows, is combat, because we're going to go for like a really cinematic experience, and I think that'll show well in an environment where you're like walking by and watching the mechs fighting. You're like, oh, that's cool. Like we're really focusing on like customization and making sure like you can customize your pilots and all your mech pieces and all your armor and paints and like everything, like all the kinds of things that you really want to do in a game like that. But that doesn't necessarily show well, because you're just sitting there for like 30 minutes at a conference, like tinkering with your mech. That's, you walk by and you see that and you're like, oh, that's kind of cool. But it's not the same as watching the mechs actually fight and throw down. So that's the first thing we're nailing down, is that combat loop. And that's what we're going to be showing at the shows. So
you can customize pilots. That seems like normally in the mech games I've played, you are the pilot, and that's not something you really modify. So like, what kind of, like, how'd you come to customizing pilots? I feel like that's probably one of the more unique things you can customize.
Yeah, so you're the commander, essentially, who is commanding the forces out in the field, and you're managing your squad, and pilots are kind of like a resource. So there's a lot more focus on kind of like the human element. There's always a pilot inside the mechs, and we want you to be aware of that, because a mech can't really emote. They're not going to be able to give you sort of that connection that you get from other people. So the pilots, you're actually going to be able to see them. If they're injured or hurt, they're like going to slump over the controls. They're going to be very expressive, and they're going to be kind of like your lens into the world, right?
So you're going to have like a little heads-up display like StarCraft or Warcraft or whatever.
Yeah, and it's actually like a dynamically animated real-time camera. You're always going to be able to see the pilots, and like you can get attached to your pilots over the course of the missions, and how you choose to like level them up, and you'll have a lot of agency over the pilot, and I think you're going to get invested in them. And you can actually eject mid-combat, and then the pilot could potentially get captured by enemy forces if you're behind enemy lines, and then you'll be able to go back and rescue them. And a lot of things that really drive like a player-driven narrative, right? Those experiences that you get.
Can you like move around when you're outside the mech?
Not right now, and I'm debating whether or not that's appropriate, because we've got kind of like a gritty sort of realism going on it. And if you were a pilot in a space where they've got like shotguns that are like the size of a small car, I just don't think that would be like, if you got hit even once, you'd just be a splat, right? Like there's no.
So the idea would be that you have to either defend that or you have to go pick them up.
Yeah, so we have the idea of these capsules that are in the back of the mech, and like you can actually eject, and they're like retro rockets, so they like fire out of the back, almost like you're ejecting from a fighter jet. So I think that's a little bit more appropriate, and then they're removed from the battle space. If I could find interesting things for the pilots to do actually in the tactical combat area, then I think I would add it. But right now it's just sort of like, they can't do anything against a mech, and I think in a case where
there's probably not like empty mechs sitting around that they can get in.
Yeah. I mean, you could potentially cause another pilot to eject, and then I'm thinking you'll be able to capture their mech after the battle, right? Like, so that'll be kind of like your spoils of war, and give you some incentive to not fully destroy them. Right?
Yeah,
so
and you could have a whole disable like thing that or tech, like not necessarily damage, but
in an electronic warfare backpack or something like that, and then shut down their mech systems and try to force them to bail out. Or you can go for attacks that are designed to damage like subsystems and hurt the pilot.
So thanks for being on the question bus. Is there anything else you want to promote?
Oh, well, that's an interesting question. I guess not.
You don't have any social medias or anything?
Well, I've got my Twitter, I guess.
What's your Twitter?
It's at C7_Jenkins, and my company is Tetragon Works, and that's at Tetragon Works.
And the game has a Twitter account?
No.
Oh, you're just running everything through the company?
Just running through the company.
Keeping it consistent.
Yep, exactly. Because we're going to eventually release other games after this, I suspect. That's the plan, at least.